Right, so, as the video says, I don't understand why people hate Trump. I understand why people love him, why people support him. I understand why people do not like him. Some people I can understand why they hate him. Maybe they lived in Atlantic City when he wrecked it with his Trump Taj Mahal, and he fucked up the economy of the city for years. Maybe it's people that went to his bullshit Trump University and realized it wasn't a real school. That one I probably shouldn't talk about too much because I don't know much about that. I just know that it folded. It wasn't a very well-regarded university. But again, so why do people hate him? What has he really done? Right? People say he's a racist. People say he's like Hitler. Well, he's not. I mean, you look at any search of the web, you can find pictures of him hanging out with black people of his social standing. Now, workers he doesn't really care about. He only cares about them in as far as he can get labor out of them because he's a capitalist, and he cares about them supporting him in putting him into positions of power, which has happened. But is he really in a position of power? No. Was he in a position of power 4 years ago? No. 8 years ago, when he started his first term, he came in with all these promises. He came in with all these hopes. He was going to drain the swamp. He was going to lock her up. He was going to build the wall. Remember that? Build the wall? Where's that one? There we go. Which is a stupid idea. And what's funny about that is a lot of the subcontractors, a few of them are fined for employing undocumented Mexicans to build the wall because they couldn't find anybody else to work out in the deserts along the border for the wages they were going to pay on this insane construction project. So of course they hired undocumented Mexicans and got fined. Wall never got done. Doesn't need to be built. You can just put blimps, drones. You can tell Border Patrol, you have an unfettered hand, and secure the border. Do your jobs, and they will. They're cops. They're thugs. They do what they're told. That's the way it works. So anyway, he didn't do anything. He said he was going. He didn't end any wars. He didn't start any new ones, not for lack of trying. And he assassinated Haj Soleimani. And Iran, showing restraint, did not tit for tat in revenge assassinate an American general, which would have been their legal right to do so, for the U.S. committing an act of war against them by assassinating one of their public figures. So, what did he really do in his first 4 years if people hate him so much? The only thing I can see is he tweeted. He got on Twitter and he ran his mouth. Is that really a reason to hate somebody as viscerally as people do? I mean, any of his comments, grab him by the pussy. I haven't really heard any racist comments that he's made. Maybe there are some. Maybe people will educate me in the comments below about what those are. Because I don't see anything he's done as really racist. He's been anti-worker. He's been, anti-American people by wanting to cut Medicare and Social Security in every budget that apparently he proposed during his previous term as president, and things aren't going to change. So what does he really stand for? Why do people hate him? People think he's going to stop the war in Ukraine. Well, that's only because the people putting him up now, the people backing him now, want America to go to war against Iran on behalf of Israel. So, if you look at the people he surrounds himself with, if you look at his cabinet, look at the last cabinet, he had John fucking Bolton in his cabinet. He had Nikki Haley. Two insane warmongers. These are crazy people that should not be around any lever of power. They should not be making any sort of policy decisions, especially in he was letting them. He later said about John Bolton that Bolton was a moron, but he was a useful moron because whenever Trump drug him to some foreign conference, the people look at Bolton, they know his reputation, and they know what he's all about, war, nothing but war. And so they think, wow, Trump's dragging this madman here. I guess he means business. At least that's what he thinks that the other parties would have thought. Personally, I think the other party would have thought, oh, so the inveterate showman is bringing the war walrus along with him because he can't find anybody actually intelligent, actually pro-American, pro-peace, to join him. He's stuck with this guy, and so we've got to pretend to be nice with him. So, about people that love him. Like I said, I understand that. I understand why people love him, because he was making the right noises during the campaign. He was talking about making America great again. And I've got a lot of friends and family back in the States, and let me tell you, talking to them, I get the feeling that something is deeply, deeply wrong in the United States. Everything I read, have been reading for years, shows that there's something off. There's this zeitgeist. Something bad is coming. Nobody really agrees on what it is. Nobody really agrees on what to do about it. But I can sure tell you that Donald Trump is not going to stop it. Harris wasn't going to stop it either, let's be honest. She's even more of a cipher than he is. She's even more of a puppet. And that's the funny thing about this whole thing. Is as bad as he is, as controlled and co-opted and contained as he's going to be in everything but Twitter, she's even worse. Because she doesn't even have her own identity. I mean, what is she about? Nobody really knows what she's about. She's about putting black people in jail, keeping them in jail. At least she was about that for California. She's about Israel, but every American politician is about Israel. So that's the thing. When Trump won, Israel won. If Harris won, Israel was going to win. Look at your Congress. Look at your Senate. Look at all of your national political figures. Ramaswamy, Gabbard, Kennedy, all of them. All of them are sucking Israel's ass. Why? Why is this foreign country so goddamn important to the U.S.? It's not a good ally. It attacked one of our ships in 1968, the USS Liberty. Was it 68? I think it was 68. Anyway, attacked one of our ships with an American flag on it, trying to sink it, trying to bring America into the war, and they were going to blame the attack on Egypt, trying to get America to come into the war in Egypt, also to sink the ship because it was picking up intelligence, it was picking up some more crimes that Israel was doing, and they didn't want that getting out. What else? Spying? Nobody spies in the U.S. more than Israel does. Nobody. And what do we get out of it? What does the U.S. get out of this relationship? Nothing. Israel has no oil. They say that Israel's our only friend in the Middle East. What is this priest I was reading about said? Until Israel came along, I don't remember us having any enemies in the Middle East. Which is true. So, kind of to sum up, because I'm just rambling at this point, I do understand why people love him, because he made the right noises. The fact that he's not actually going to do anything, the fact that he's going to accelerate the collapse of the United States for the American worker and enable his peers, his billionaire peers, to suck more and more out of the country, to bleed it dry and leave a husk for the people that are left when it collapses, is beside the point. He's the only one saying anything to them. He's the only one at least pretending to care. The other side can't even pretend to care. And it's just absolutely disheartening. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know what people can do about it. But come together. But America's been so beautifully divided. You've got black against white. You've got left against right. You've got feminism against whatever, toxic masculinity. You've got all these divisions. So nobody's coming together. And if you look at the workers, the working class, white, black, Hispanic, man, woman, they all have a lot more in common than they think. They all have a lot more in common with each other than with the ruling class. The ruling class that is going to continue beating them into the ground, continue bleeding the country, continue selling it off to benefit some foreign power that provides nothing to the United States except chaos and discontent among nations that could be American, at least neutral parties. When you look at it, why does any country hate the U.S. in the Middle East? Because of America's inveterate support for Israel that is actually committing a genocide right now in front of our face. We can all see it. You go on TikTok, you go on Twitter, you go on YouTube, you can see what the Israelis are proudly doing to these people. Basically, they have an Indian problem. The Palestinians are kind of like the Sioux in 1860. So, the Sioux in 1860 got beaten down, thrown under reservations around that time period, around the end of after the Civil War. And until then, the colonialism, the massacres, all that was able to be swept under the carpet because of the way media worked in that day. Now, it's different. Israel has the same problem, is doing the same thing. The United States, Canada, Australia, Spain. Well, not Spain. Spain was a little bit more nicer to its natives. At least gave them full rights as Spanish citizens early on. But the settling powers wanted the land and wanted the people off the land. And so they're pretty brutal about it. Israel's the same way. It's a settling power. It wants the people off the land. It wants the land. And the problem is the world is no longer willing to stomach that. If we had the media we have today, if we had smartphones, if we had Twitter, if we had everybody was carrying a camera in their pocket in 1860, and we saw what the United States was doing to the Sioux, we saw what the Canadians were doing to some of their Indians, we saw what the Australians were doing to the Aborigine, it would have been different. It would have been a lot different. People seeing it, people seeing children murdered, families bombed and destroyed, people gunned down, wouldn't have stood for it, would have changed people's minds. So that's kind of where we are. So if you hate Trump, if you hate him, tell me why, because I'm curious. Why do you really hate him? And if you love him and you support him, curious to hear that too, because like I said, I'm just neutral on the guy. I understand him. I understand the phenomenon, but there is no reason to believe whatsoever that he's going to do anything he promised. He can't bring back manufacturing. That ship has sailed. That ship sailed in the 1990s when they started sending off factories in China so American corporations could make stuff cheaper, cut out the American worker, boost their profits, boost their bottom line, and it only accelerated. For example, Corningware. Corningware manufactured glass bowls, glass cooking implements. And I don't know if they've left the U.S. completely. I don't know. I'm just using them as an example of an industry, as a company. So let's say Corningware. They go to China. It's not just Corningware as a factory that goes. Every input into that factory dies in the U.S. and is built up in China. All the sand they need to make the glass, all the energy supplies, all the machinery, all the repairmen to work on the machinery, all the workers, all the other infrastructure, all the materials they need to make the plastic lids. They probably don't get crude oil. They probably get some kind of refined petroleum product to do that, but they make them themselves. All of that goes away and stands up in China. All that stood up in China. So everybody along that entire chain, from the factory to the delivery men delivering the raw materials, to the cafeterias and the restaurants that the workers ate at for lunch and ate at after work, to the bars and the pubs that they went to after work and on the weekends, that whole community dies. And it's not coming back. Because first you have to figure out how you're going to pay American wages, wages to entice people to work. Where are you going to get the skilled workers? Where are you going to get the machinery? Where are you going to build this? Where are you going to get the inputs? How are you going to compete at the end? You know, if a glass dish, the plastic lid, costs $30 US from China, and you have to sell it for 50 or 60 because of the higher cost of being in the United States, how is that going to be a problem? Who's going to do that? And that's only one industry. I was reading about 4 or 5 years ago, the Pentagon, for some reason they started looking into precursors for missile fuels, for air-to-air missiles. So they let me try to get, I've got another meme here. Yeah. So, for some reason, some officer started looking into the precursors of these missile fuels. He wanted to know where they came from. And they all come from China. So China produces what's required to make the fuels for these air-to-air missiles. And he thought, oh, this is bad. Why don't we make this in America? Did some more digging. And they found out, and this is years ago, I was reading this, they found out 5 years before this investigation, 5 years, the last American company that made those precursors shut down. Nobody makes them in America anymore. And if they shut down, it means it's not profitable. That government contracting was not profitable. So that kind of industry isn't coming back unless the government sets it up itself. And the United States is not the Soviet Union. It's not Russia. It doesn't have direct military government-owned companies. It does, in a roundabout way, by giving all these no-bid, cost-plus contracts to defense contractors for shit that barely works, or is so technologically advanced that it breaks down at every possible opportunity. So who's going to make America great again? And this, Kamala Harris. So that's how bad things are. Trump is better than she is. That's the best thing I can say about him. I don't have any ill will against the man personally, but still I wonder why people love him, why people hate him. Another thing about the Democrats is, you remember the New Green Deal that they were touting a few years ago? And it became this insane, bloated, crazy project of completely going on renewable energy, completely, and just adding all the shit to the bill that didn't need to be added. I got tired of looking at it after they lost their goddamn minds and wouldn't look at nuclear. That's not what it was originally supposed to be. Originally, the New Green Deal, as proposed by the Democrats in I think the 90s, what it was supposed to be is an Apollo-style program to upgrade and renew the entire infrastructure of the United States from coast to coast. Upgrade all the power transmission capabilities. Upgrade all the bridges, all the roads that were in need of attention. We've already seen a few collapse over the past few years. Upgrade the communication networks, upgrade the airports, upgrade the seaports. Basically, make America look like China does. Because China built all their shit new. You know, everything they have, in 20, 30 years, they're going to have the same problem the United States has now. Is we've got all this old stuff, now we need to maintain it, now we need to rebuild it. Unless they constantly keep up on the maintenance, that they don't ignore it. So that was the original New Green Deal and the nuclear renaissance, nuclear power. Imagine if they'd done that, coast to coast, roads, bridges, rail, air, sea, communication, power, all of it. All of it planned with the government pushing behind it. That would create millions of good, solid American jobs, pump a lot of money into the economy, make the country more competitive, more secure. But they didn't do that. They just dropped it. And then a few years later, they took the same name and they came out with this pork project full of graft and bullshit. But that's all government products now. They're just graft and bullshit. I mean, who's going to turn that around? Do you see anybody? Wherever you are, if you're in the States, do you see anybody turning that around? Your congressman, your senator? Or are they getting money from AIPAC and voting to send more of your money to a country that is not an ally of the United States, does not give a shit about the United States, or sending more money to America's proxy war in Europe, the proxy war in Ukraine? That is a proxy war. It is not Ukraine fighting Russia. It is America using Ukraine to fight Russia. That's where we are. And it's in real danger of going hot and direct. And lately, the U.S. has been trying to figure out how to provoke Russia even more to get them to go nuclear, to get them to do something so drastic that they can engage in a hot war with Russia. But again, Trump coming in, his people, they don't want war in Ukraine, they want war with Iran, which is another stupid place for the U.S. to fight. It means nothing to the American people. If you're an American guy and you're not Iranian, you don't have family there, what do you care about Iran? What does it mean to you? It probably means really the same as, oh, I don't know, Chile, as Kenya. It's some faraway country that you'll probably never visit. So what does it matter? What's the point of antagonizing? What's the point of having a conflict with this country on the other side of the world? It makes no goddamn sense to a normal, everyday man. To somebody running an empire, playing imperial games, that's sucking out the country. And every empire sucks out the country it's a host of. Rome, the Soviet Union, great examples. Rome lasted pretty long, though. America's not going to. It's amazing that America's outlasted the Soviet Union as long as it had. Do I want to keep rambling or no one is? 5 minutes in. Let me post this and see what it thinks. I hope to God this doesn't kill my Magic channel. I hope to God I haven't pissed off so many people with what I said. that they start to unsubscribe from the channel I really care about. Let's see.